it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. I am so pumped because today we are talking about my top 10 favorite books of 2018. That was like super aggressive, I'm sorry, but I'm very, very excited. So all of these books are a 4.5 or above star rating for me. So on this list, I have 3 adult thrillers, 1 nonfiction, 1 literary fiction, and 5 YAs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5 YAs. Anyway, I'm probably gonna get super rambly about these books, so let's just go ahead and dive on in. So coming in at number 10 on my list is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This is an adult thriller mystery that follows a husband right after his wife has disappeared, and as the clues kind of come together, it seems like he is actually the killer. We follow his perspective, and then we get the perspective of his wife's diary, and we flip back and forth as the investigation continues. This is categorized as a thriller, but I definitely think it's more of a mystery. It's not super fast-paced. I mean, it's pretty slow crawl, a kind of like eerie and quiet character reveal as the story continues, but I loved it because of the terrible characters and really toxic relationship. Both of our main characters have big secrets. Both are very gray, if not like morally black characters. But what I really loved about this book was that there is a character in here who is like this diabolical mastermind. And I love reading about masterminds. It doesn't really matter if they're villainous or good. It's just like if you're so smart that you can like orchestrate things in like this really intense and intelligent way, I'm here for it. Also, if you haven't been spoiled for this book, it has like a really killer plot twist, like a couple really good plot twists. Number 9 on my list is also a mystery thriller and a little bit of a sci-fi, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is the book that I think you should really go into as blind as possible. Just know it's about a guy who wakes up after being attacked by like what you would think is like thugs, and he wakes up and there's people surrounding him asking him really weird questions, and they're all in hazmat suits, and things just get weirder and weirder from there. This has one of the most intense plots I think I have ever read in my life. It doesn't give you a breather. It's just like boom, boom, boom. There were so many twists and turns along this book. It was so intense, and like you just want this poor guy to like have his happy ending and like reach his goal and get what he wants. But there's so many things in the way of it that it feels like he's almost never gonna get this goal, and you're just like, come on, please, like please be nice to him. Anyway, it's like super intense, super trippy, really fast-paced. If you're looking for a book that you can read in like a couple hours or just like one sitting or something, I definitely think it's this. Coming in at number 8 is my first YA book on this list, and that is The Spellbook of the Lost and Found by Moira Fowley Doyle. I have a couple underhyped books on this list, and this is definitely one of them. It came out a couple years ago, and nobody's read it and nobody's talking about it, and it's so good. It's so good. So this book follows a couple teenagers who live in Ireland, and they live in a very small secluded town surrounded by like woods, and all of a sudden they find this mysterious book in the woods and they start reading from it, and then things start to disappear that shouldn't be disappearing. Like it starts with little things like trinkets and earrings and like keychains and stuff, and then it gets bigger and bigger and creepier, and it's just so good. The book is so atmospheric. Like over half of it takes place in these really creepy old woods, and like, you know, you've just got like the Irish atmosphere, so everything's very like misty and gray and rainy, and oh, just the atmosphere is so good. I also listened to this one on audiobook, which I highly recommend because I think all of the audiobook narrators, there's like 3 or 4 perspectives, and they're all Irish, or at least they do like a really stellar Irish accent. All of the characters are very well fleshed out. They feel like real people that you would know and like that you went to high school with, which I think is incredible. And the family relationships in this book are so good. So one thing that I really love is when YA books focus on the family dynamics, because a lot of times it's like romance or like saving the planet or, you know, whatever is going on in a crazy YA book. But like family is so important, and like as a teenager, my family was like the first thing that I ever thought of all the time. Like they're always there, and everything revolves around being home. And so having such a good, awesome, like funny, family unit and watching everyone interact was just great. Also, another selling point for a lot of people is that almost every character in this book is somewhere on the queer spectrum. So if that's important to you, if you like your queer representation, this book's got you. Overall, it's creepy, it's witchy, it's perfect for Halloween time. The characters are really dynamic and I love all of the relationships. It doesn't matter what kind, like they're all just so well done. And I want more people to read this so we can talk about it. Coming in at number 7 on my list is The Death of Mrs Westaway by Ruth Ware. This is about a girl who gets a letter in the mail finding out that her grandmother has died and left her this huge estate and tons of money, but the girl's like, this woman really isn't my grandmother, but I'm gonna try to scam her and get the money anyway. So she travels to this house to meet all of her distant relatives that, you know, they've obviously never met, and they're all in the big manor house just stuck there waiting like for the lawyer to show up, and it gets dark and stormy and creepy, and everyone in the family is kind of odd and they have secrets, and then creepy stuff starts happening. I love this book. Not so much because the mystery was like so enthralling, because it was a good mystery. I do think that if you've read quite a bit of mystery thrillers, you will be able to guess the plot twist eventually at some point, which is fine. But what I really loved about this book, which is why it's on the list, is because the atmosphere in this book is so good. Every single page is like just dripping with this feeling of like dread and creepiness, and it almost feels like you're in like a horror novel or like a haunted house type thing, and there's like supernatural, like ghostly elements, but there's not. But like the atmosphere is so well constructed, you just feel like that the entire book. I also really enjoyed our main character. She was very gray, and I really enjoy morally gray female characters. She is a tarot card reader, and that aspect about her personality like was just so strong. Like it was her voice. Like everything that happened in the real world, she would like somehow find a way to bring that back to like her tarot card readings, and it was so good. Coming in at number 6 on the list is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This book has taken booktube by storm. I think it's going to be in everyone's end of year list because it is just that good. This is a book that follows dual perspectives. You get the perspective of a guy running a podcast, and like when you read or listen to the audiobook, it like legitimately feels like you're listening to a podcast with like interviews and phone calls and things like that. So you're getting his perspective about his podcast about 2 girls, one who was murdered and the other girl who is her older sister that went missing. You also get the perspective of Sadie, who is the older sister of the murdered girl who has gone missing herself. This is just such an enthralling story of revenge and grief and healing and family, and whoo dog is it intense. I read this book in 8 hours, like straight. I did not stop. It was just that good. It's so enthralling. You have to keep turning the pages. You have to know what happens. Courtney Summers constructed this book so that every single chapter ending, you are left on a cliffhanger to where you want to skip the podcast chapter or Sadie's chapter just to get back to what is about to be revealed for that certain perspective, but then you read to the next chapter and it's the same thing. It's just excellent. I have read very few books that are constructed with their reveals and their twists so well. If you have the chance to, the audiobook for this is absolutely incredible. It's full cast, there's like music and sounds in the background. It's great. The only caveat I have to like recommending this book is that it's very dark. If you are sensitive to child or sexual abuse or anything like that, I would stay away from this book since it revolves basically around the death and abuse of murdered children. Coming in at number 5 is a nonfiction book, and that is Anatomy of Story by John Truby. Of course, I was gonna include this. This is a book that teaches you how to construct the perfect story. Now, it is technically written for people who do like screenwrite for movies or TV shows, but a story is a story, and it really doesn't matter what medium it takes place in. Like, you have to hit these certain beats to have a good story. And I've torn this book up. It's just so good. It has taken my book from like okay to like objectively really amazing. I highly recommend it. I think if you're a writer, you need to read this. It is a little dense, it is a little bit more complex, so I don't think this is like needs to be like the first starting book that you've read, but once you've got the basics down, like check this out. It's gonna change your story. It's gonna change your life. Coming in at number 4 is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is another book that's on everybody's top 10 list because it's just that good. It started out being very underrated and no one was talking about it, and then it kind of exploded, and rightfully so because it is beautiful. This book follows a woman who in her prime was a Hollywood starlet, but as she's gotten older, the past like 30 years of her life, she's kind of become a recluse. So when essentially a nobody reporter gets a letter saying that Evelyn Hugo wants her to write her book, she's like, oh my gosh, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. So the book follows both perspectives of Evelyn Hugo telling her life story in flashbacks and the reporter who is documenting Evelyn's tale. Let me just say that this book was perfect for me because I am so nosy and I love to know everything about everybody's business. And this book was just a complete diary laid out of this famous woman's life, and I ate it up. Okay, like it was so good. So if you're nosy like me, you'll love it. I think because of the raw, deep, like spill of the beans, spill of the tea type like narrative the book has, it's just really enthralling because you want to know more about this woman's life and like why she married 7 people and like which of the 7 was her real true love, and you know, all of this stuff is really interesting. But it also deals with like a lot of heavier topics that I really enjoyed being discussed in the novel. There was lots of topics on abuse and how women's power have changed throughout the passage of time. There's an exploration of the erasure of like culture and race and sexuality through media and through stardom. And it just was so fascinating. It was just totally a character portrait of this woman's life and everything she's dealt with and how things have changed. This book overall is just heartbreaking, it's beautiful, it's enthralling, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you feel so much stuff, and I highly recommend it, and that's why it's number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3 on my list is The Disappearances by Emily Bain Murphy. This book follows a main character named Juliet who, after her mother died and her father is shipped off in World War II, her and her little brother go back to their mother's hometown, but this town is a little bit different. Every 7 years, kind of like a curse is enacted and something in the town disappears forever. It could be little things like the ability to smell things or see the stars or your reflection in mirrors or even the ability to dream. People in the town have always suspected that Juliet's mother had something to do with enacting the curse, so Juliet is going to try to put together the clues and figure out, first of all, what's causing the curse, what is the curse, and if her family has anything to do with it. I would describe this book as like light gold soft magic. Like it is just, it's so beautiful, it's incredibly nostalgic, it just makes you feel like a child somehow, like the rural hometown, the sweet family setting, how real and quirky and like just little details, like seemingly minuscule details about the characters are given, but it makes them feel so real, like you know them, like they have been your friends all your life, and just the magic in general, like it's kind of sad, but it's sweet and soft at the same time. I feel like I cannot accurately describe the emotions and atmosphere that this book gives you, but like just think like cotton candy and like warm summer nights with like fireflies and like that nostalgic hometown feel of getting ice cream from like the corner store. It's just, read it. It's so good. It's so good. And number 2 on my list. Oh boy. It is The Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the second book in the Strange the Dreamer duology that follows a young librarian who is obsessed with finding this lost mythical city of Weep. And then he gets the opportunity to go there, and you just follow his journey there and all of the events that happen while he's in the city, and it's just beautiful and otherworldly is the only way I can describe it. Like the world building is just so good. These books honestly feel not like you are reading a fairy tale, like you are living a fairy tale. The language and the prose and the atmosphere and the way everything is described just is so lifelike. Like you see, you smell, you hear, you live in this world while you are reading these books. And that is the reason I read. Like I read for what the experiences these experiences the books give me. I'm so flustered. Like I love this so much I can't even coherently string sentences together. The series also explores some really interesting heavy topics like the aftermath of war. There is no current war going on in this series, unlike a lot of YA fantasies. This follows what happens afterwards and the traumas and the prejudices, and you just watch the characters and you watch them struggle through it. and you just want to give them all a big hug. This also has one of my favorite romances of all time, and they're side characters. Actually, it's not even the main romance, but I just love them so much. Like, I literally want to do a favorite couples of 2018 video just because I love this couple so much in here. So let me know down in the comments if you're interested in seeing that, and I might do it. I might do it. At number 1 on my list probably will not come too much surprise, but that is The Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I honestly cannot believe that it was 2018 where I discovered this series, because I feel like I have known these characters and loved this series my whole life. So this is a YA fantasy novel that takes place in a Roman-esque inspired world and follows our main character Laya, whose brother is taken hostage by the conquering nation, and she has to become a spy to help the rebels because they've made a deal with her that if she becomes a spy they will help free her brother. And at the same time we follow Elias, who is a very unwilling and unhappy soldier for this conquering regime, and their two worlds collide and so much happens. It's funny because when I started writing my own novel, I was looking for something on the YA shelves that just was not there. I wanted something incredibly brutal that like pushed the bounds of YA. I wanted something with strong characters and a book that gave me emotions and that scared me, and I didn't know, you know, who was gonna live or who was gonna survive or what was gonna happen. I wanted stakes, I wanted emotions, I wanted like a world that felt so immersive that I just felt like I couldn't leave the page because this world was more real than the real world. Like, I just wanted so much and I couldn't find it, so I started writing my own novel, and then like when I was on my second draft I found this little guy, and it is all those things. It is all of those things that I love, and it has so many tropes that I tend to love. I'm pretty sure it's got the doomed lovers trope. It's got like the creepy prophetic people that live up in a cave and give you prophecies. Like, I love that trope. I just love prophecy tropes in general. I love people that are genuinely good people that are forced to do bad things. That's one of my favorite things to explore in my own writing. And oh gosh, and I love the romance. Like, this is such, to me, such an enthralling good romance, because they're pitted against each other and they're on opposite sides on many different spectrums, and it's like there's so much pulling them apart. You just want them to be happy, and so good. I first discovered this book on audiobook, so if you haven't checked it out and you can get the audiobook, I would highly recommend. Steve West plays Elias, his voice. He also plays Strange the Dreamer, like Laszlo, and so I'm like, my favorite male characters, that's his voice. But Fiona Hardingham plays Laya, and she is like the most intense audiobook narrator ever. Like, she makes you feel, like, she makes my heart race in these like really intense scenes. Most audiobooks are like, oh, he had a knife, he ran at me, I dodged, and Fiona Hardingham would be like, he ran at me, he had the knife, I dodged at the last moment, and I'm like, also she's British, which makes it like 10 times better. I love this series. It's got one more book coming out in 2020. And I actually met Sabaa Tahir too, and she is awesome. I will go ahead and link that video so you guys can check that out. But yeah, like, I just love everything that Sabaa Tahir is in her writing, and like her like advocacy. Like, it's all just great. Just read it. It's my fave. Those were my top 10 books of 2018. I had an amazing reading year, and I cannot wait for the books and the stories and the characters that I get to discover in 2019. Make sure to let me know down in the comments what were some of your favorite reads of 2018. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!